Hello everyone and welcome to the C++ tutorial for beginners by SimpliCode. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we'll take you through different concepts of C++ in a single video. In this video tutorial we are going to discuss different concepts of C++, including the history and uses of C++ programming. Our trainer will take you through every concept of C++ in detail. But before we begin, let me tell you guys that we have regular updates on multiple programming videos. So if you are a programmer and if you want to learn something new, then consider getting subscribed to our YouTube channel and press that bell icon to never miss any updates from SimpliCode. So without any further delay, let's hand over this session to our training expert.
In this session, we will learn about history of C++, uses of C++ programming language, its features, then we'll learn about variables and types. After that, we will cover arrays in C++. Later, we will go through loops in C++, then switch case statements, followed by strings. Then there are functions in C++, then pointers. After that, oops concept, and finally, we will learn about recursion. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss an update. So let's go ahead to our first topic, that is history of C++. C++ programming was created by John Strostrup in 1979 at Bell Labs. It was created as an extension to the C programming language. The goal was to add object-oriented features to the C language. And back then, it was called C with classes. In the year 1982, several new features were added. The most important were virtual functions, operator overloading, constants, single-line comments, etc. And the name of the language is changed from C with classes to C++. Here ++ is the increment operator, which gives the idea that C++ is evolved from the C language. Now, coming to uses of C++. C++ programming language has many uses. Some of them are, it is used in developing operating systems like Windows, Mac operating system, etc. All of these have some parts that are written in C++. C++ helps in making web browsers. It helps the browsers to carry out the task with speed and efficiency. Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, Safari are some examples of it. C++ is widely used for developing games because it is fast programming language. C++ is used for creating games like Counter-Strike and gaming consoles like Xbox and PlayStation. C++ is generally used for embedded systems like medical devices, TVs, smartwatches, etc. It helps the programmers to control how these systems run more efficiently. Now moving forward to features of C++. C++ is regarded as simple language because it has a rich library with a variety of data types and its syntax is almost similar to C language. C++ is object-oriented programming language that makes it easier to manage, and features like polymorphism, abstraction, etc. helps in making the application secured and efficient. C++ is portable language. We can easily write the same code on different operating systems, but it is not fully platform independent like Java. It has both the features of low-level and high-level language. It can easily be used to develop applications or software based on the required level of programming language, and that is why it is called mid-level language. C++ programming language is way faster than any other programming language. Its compilation time and execution time is fast. Memory management is easy in C++. It supports dynamic memory allocation, and we can free memory anytime we want by using the free function. C++ has rich library. It has a lot of inbuilt functions that helps in programming by making things easy for developments and save time for development purpose. Now let's learn about variables and types. A variable in C++ is used to store values, and every variable has a data type. Some of the basic data types includes integer, double, character, float, and next is void. So let's start. Integer. This data type is used when we want to store numeric values like 2, 4, 5, 8, 20, 30, etc. Second is double or double floating point. This data type is used for storing double precision floating point values, example 24.75, 5.94, etc. Next is character. As the name suggests, character data type is used for storing characters, for example A, B, C, etc. Then there is float or floating point. This data type is used for storing single precision floating point values, for example 2.1, 5.7, 4.2, etc. Next is void. This void data type is used when there is nothing to return. Keep in mind that every variable is declared with its type. Now, syntax of variable is data type of variable, then the name of the variable. Here int num is the example, and over here in the integer variable var, we are storing the value 10, and in character variable ch, we are storing the character e. Now let's move to arrays in C++. An array can be defined as collection of variables of a similar data type that are stored sequentially. It is easy to access elements of an array using its index number, and each element of the array is identified by the index number which starts from 0. Elements are placed at these index numbers. For example, first element of array, that is 12, is stored at index 0, and second element, that is 4, is at index 1, and so on. The syntax for array declaration is type, then array name along with the size of array. Here type is the data type of elements that are stored in the array, array name is the name of the array, and size is the number of elements that are stored in the array. Now, coming to loops in C++. Loops are repetition control structures that are generally used to repeat the block or section of code instead of repeating the entire code. There are three types of loops in C++: for loop, while loop, and do while loop. So let's start with for loop. For loop is used when we know the exact number of times the loop should repeat. Its syntax has three parts: initialization, condition, and updation. First, the initialization takes place. In this part, we initialize and declare loop control variables. This part takes place only once. Second part is condition. In this part, the condition of the loop is evaluated. If it's true, then only the body of loop executes. Once the condition evaluates to be true and the loop body is executed, then updation takes place. This part increments or decrements loop variables. For example, here int I equal to 0 is initialization, I less than 10 is the condition, and I++ is the updation. Now next is while loop. This loop is used when we don't know the exact number of times the loop should repeat. This loop execution terminates based on the test condition. The syntax of while loop is while keyword and the test condition. In this part, the condition is checked. If it's true, then the body of loop executes and goes to the updation part. The updation part is responsible for continuation of loop. This part increments or decrements the loop variable. For example, here first we have initialized variable n with 0, and then we have used while loop and put the condition n less than 4. Now the loop will execute till the value of n is less than 4, and after every iteration the value of n will increment because we are updating it using the increment operator. Coming to do while loop. In do while loop, test condition is at the bottom of the loop and the body of loop comes before the test condition. Hence the body of loop executes at least once before the condition is even evaluated. This loop is used when we don't have the idea about the number of iterations and the loop must execute for it at least once. Its syntax is do block, and after the block there is while with a condition. This do block executes first before the condition is checked, and after that the condition of while is evaluated. If it's true, then only the loop will further execute. It means even if the condition is not true, then also the loop will execute for once. Now coming to switch statements. Switch statements helps in checking the equality of a variable against some number of values, and these values are called cases. It compares the value of the variable with these cases, and whichsoever case matches with the variable, that particular case will execute. This is the syntax for switch case statement. Here variable is the one for which the comparison is to be done. Case refers to the different cases with which the comparison will take place. Break keyword prevents the execution from going to the next case statement. Now coming to strings in C++. A string is a sequence of characters. They are used to represent text in the program. There are two types of strings: C-style strings and string class. C-style strings: in C programming, the collection of characters are stored in the form of arrays. C++ also allows this style. It is a one-dimensional array of characters followed by a null character. Now string class. C++ string is an object of string class. This is a part of standard namespace and is defined in the header. Let's have a look at the syntax. C-style string declaration. Char keyword, then the name of string and size inside the brackets, then there are 4 characters SAMI semi following a null character. The size of string is 5. The one extra space is for holding the null character. Now in order to use string class of C++, we must include string as a header. The syntax is string keyword, the name of string, then we can write whatsoever string we want to store. For example, here we are storing semi. Now let's move on to C++ functions. Functions can be defined as a group of statements designed to perform specific tasks and return an output. We can also pass arguments to the function. The intent of the function is to combine common tasks and perform them. We can invoke the function by calling it using the name of the function and round brackets. These are user-defined functions. We can also pass arguments to the function if we want to. The syntax of a function definition is data type along with the function name, then arguments inside the brackets. Every C++ program has at least one function known as main function. This is where the execution of programs starts from. There are both built-in and user-defined functions in C++. The built-in functions are in the C++ standard library. If we want to use them, then we can simply call them. Now let's have a look at this example. In this example over here, we are defining the function add is the name of the function, integer is the data type, and n1 and 2 are the arguments. This function is doing the addition of two variables and is returning the output. And inside the main function, we are calling this add function and passing the arguments. Coming to pointers in C++. Pointers can be defined as a reference to a variable. It holds the memory address of another variable. Now this memory address is a particular location in a computer's memory where the data is stored, and the pointers store these memory addresses. Pointers must have the data type that matches with the reference variable. The reference operator returns the memory address of the variable, and the dereference operator displays the value that is stored at that memory address. The syntax of the pointer is data type, then the dereference operator with the variable name. Now coming to object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming, or OOPS, is a programming model that uses the concept of classes and objects. In OOPS, programming revolves around objects rather than logic and functions. Now let's have a look at the OOPS concept, that is, polymorphism, inheritance, encapsulation, abstraction. Let's start with polymorphism. Polymorphism is the ability to perform a task in more than one way. It provides different meanings to operators and functions, or in other words, it redefines the way how things work. Next is inheritance. It can be defined as a process in which one object acquires all the properties and behavior of a parent object. The inherited class is called base class, and the class that inherits is called the derived class. Now coming to encapsulation. It can be defined as binding data, variables and functions together into a single unit. Now coming to abstraction. Abstraction can be defined as hiding the internal details and showing the functionality to the user. In C++, it is easy to access class variables and methods, and abstraction keeps them hidden from direct access. Now moving to the last topic, that is recursion. Recursion can be defined as a process in which a function calls itself again and again until a certain condition is met. We can define the condition using if-else statements or similar approaches. For example, here we are calling a function named data, which is calling itself again within the same function. Here we are calling the function data, and here is the function data calling itself. This part where the function data is calling itself is called recursive call, and the part where we are calling data function from the main function is function call. So as we have covered all these topics, so let's go ahead and do some examples on these topics in our code editor, that is VS Code. Now here we will do a basic example of array in which we declare and initialize an array and print the elements of array using for loop. So let's start. First of all, let's create a new file. Now let's name this file c++tute.cpp. So first of all, we'll include the header files, hash include iostream, then we'll use using namespace standard, now we'll write int main. Now we'll declare and initialize an array. The array name is arr, the size of array is 5, and now the elements of array. Let's write 12, 40, 22, any random elements, 75, and 80. Alright, now we'll write the for loop because we want to print the elements. So we have to write for loop int I equal to 0. We'll initialize the for loop with 0. Then we put the condition I less than 5, which is the size of array, I plus plus increment operator. Now we'll display the elements. To display those elements, we'll write arr, and inside the bracket we'll write I. After that, end line. Here we are printing array of I. This means one by one each and every element from 0 to 5 will get printed as the loop will execute further. Like first 0 will be there, then 1 index will be there, then 2 index, 3 index, 4 index up to 5. So one by one all the elements of array 12 to 80, all the elements will be printed. Now after that, let's try to return 0, and let's try to run this program. We'll press this play button to run the program. So here is our output. Elements 12, 40, 22, 75, 80. These are the elements which we want to print. So this is how we can do it. And if we want to print a particular element as well, so we can do that also. All we have to do is to write the index number of that particular element. Let's say I want to print 40, so I will write the index number of 40, which is 1. Now I'll save this by pressing Ctrl S, and now I'll run this. Here it is, 40, 40, 40. It is because we are using the for loop, so that is why it is printing 45 times. But if we don't use for loop, let's say, and now if we try to run this by pressing Ctrl save and running the program, let's see the output. Here it is 40. As we can see, we have wrote the index number of a particular element, and that element is getting printed. Let's try 3. At index 3 we can see 75 is there. 0, 1, 2, 3, 75 is the element at index 3. So let's save it and run again. 75 will be printed. Here it is, 75. Now let's move on to our next example. Let's create a new file and let's name it C++tut2.cpp. We'll save this. Okay, now here we will do a program of array in which we will do the sum of all the elements of the array. So let's start. First of all, hash include iostream header file. Now using namespace standard. Now we'll write the main function and we'll initialize an array to, I'll write random numbers 2, 4, 10, 8, 3, 11, and again 2. Alright, now there are total 7 elements, then I'll write the size equals 7. We can also take the input from the user, but let's do it in this way. Alright, now we'll declare a variable sum and initialize it with 0. Now we'll write the for loop. Now we'll initialize it with 0, I less than size, which is the size of array. Now we'll increment the loop I++. Now as we know that we have initialized the variable sum equal to 0 because we want to store the sum of all the elements of array into this variable. So let's write down sum equals sum plus array of I. Now here one by one all the elements from 0 to the size of the array, that is 7, all the elements will be added to this sum variable one by one. So now let's print this variable. We'll write the message the sum of array is sum variable. Now return 0. Over here from 0 to 7 all the elements will be added to this sum variable. We know sum is 0, but when 2 will be added, then the sum becomes 2, and then 4 will be added to it, then 10 will be added to it, so as 8, 3, 11 and 2. So one by one all the elements will get added to the sum variable, and here we are printing the sum variable. So let's see how it works. Now let's save this by pressing Ctrl and S together. And now let's try to run this program. As you can see, the sum of array is 40. So let's count. 2 plus 4, 6, 6 plus 10, 16, 16 plus 8 equals 24, 24 plus 3, 27, 27 plus 11 equals to 38 plus 2, 40. So this is the right answer. So now let's do another example of if-else statements. So let's make a new file. We'll go to new file and let's name it. tude3.cpp. We'll save it. Now we'll write the hash include iostream. Now we'll write the namespace standard. Now we'll start with the main function. In this program, we'll use the if-else statement to check whether the person is senior citizen or not. So let's start. First of all, we'll declare the variable age. So now we'll take the input from the user. So we'll ask them to enter the age. So we'll write the age variable. The user entered the age. Now we'll use the if condition that if the age of a person is greater than 60, then we'll print the person is senior citizen. So let's write person is senior citizen. We have put the condition age greater than 60, and so it means that if a person enters the number greater than 60, then he is a senior citizen. Okay, now in the else block, we'll print the person is not a senior citizen. Person is not a senior citizen. Now we'll write return 0. So this is a basic example to understand if-else statements. So let's try to run this program, but let's first save it by pressing Ctrl and S together. Now let's run this program. So here we have to enter the age of the person. Let's say the age of the person is 67, and now we'll press enter. As you can see, person is a senior citizen, we can see. Now let's try to run it again. Now this time we'll enter the age 50. So here we can see person is not a senior citizen when we enter 50 age. Alright, so this is the right output. So let's do an example of for loop. Let's name this one as for.cpp. Let's save it. Now here we will do an example in which we will enter a number, and the sum of all the numbers up to that number will be its output. For example, let's say we have entered 4. So its output would be 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1, that is equal to 10. The sum of all the numbers up to that number. So let's start. We'll do this example with for loop and while loop as well. So let's start it. Hash include iostream. Now using namespace standard. Now we'll start with the main function, right? Int main. Now we'll declare two variables, int num and int sum and initialize sum with 0. Alright, now we'll display a message that enter a positive number. And we'll take the input num. Alright, now here we have to write the for loop because we want to do the sum of all the numbers. So we have to write for keyword int I equals 1. We'll start with 1. I less than equal to num. This is the condition and this is the updation. Now all we have to do is write sum equals sum plus I, because we know that we have initialized sum as 0 earlier and the loop is running from I equal to 1 up to the number we have entered, like let's say 5. Then the loop will run from 1 to 5 and sum is 0. So when 1 will be there, then sum becomes 1, and then plus 2, that is 3, plus 3, that is 5, up to so on. So this is the way how this loop will work. Now after this, all we have to do is to print the sum variable. So we'll write, first of all we'll write sum equals, and now sum variable and L. Now at last return 0. Now let's try to run this, and first we'll save it by pressing Ctrl and S. Enter a positive number. Alright, let's say 5. Sum is 15. So let's check. 1 plus 2 equals to 3, 3 plus 3 equals to 6, 6 plus 4 equals to 10, and 10 plus 5 equals to 15. So this is the correct output. So this is how we can do this example with the help of for loop. Now let's try the same example, this example only, with the help of while loop. So let's remove this part. Now we'll write while keyword and num, which is the variable, that is the positive number that is entered by the user, we'll write not equal to 0. I'll explain this. Now here we'll write sum equals sum plus num, and then num equals to num minus 1. Here what we are doing is, we have taken the input from the user, that is num, let's say it is 5, and we have put the condition inside while that num not equal to 0, and inside the loop we have used the decrement, we are decrementing num by 1. So 5 will be added to the sum variable, which is initially 0. After that num will be decremented, as we can see, num equal to num minus 1. So it will become 4, and now 4 is added to sum, so sum becomes 5 plus 4 equal to 9. And then again num will decrement, and this goes on till num becomes equal to 0, because in while loop there is a condition saying the loop will keep on repeating till n is not equal to 0, and when it becomes equal to 0, the loop will terminate. So now let's try to run this program by pressing Ctrl S, and now click on this play button. Enter a positive number. Let's write 5 again to check whether it is. So it's correct, sum is 15. So this program can be done with the help of for loop as well as while loop. And let's move to another example. So now let's do another example. In this example, we'll simply swap two numbers using function. So let's save this. First of all, name it C++tut4.cpp. So let's start with header files, hash include iostream. Now namespace standard. Now we'll start with the main function. Inside the main function, first of all, we will declare both the variables n1 and n2. Now we'll display a message saying that enter two numbers that you want to swap. So we'll write enter two numbers that you want to swap. Alright, now we'll take the input from the user of those two numbers. So we'll write n1 n2 C in n1 n2. Here we are taking the input from the user. Now all we have to do is to display the numbers that we have taken the input of from the user, because we want to compare it later. So let's write n1 and n1 variable, after that ndl, so that it looks good. Now same for n2 will do. Now we have to call a function. Let's name that function swap, and we'll create that function later onwards. And in this function we are passing the arguments n1 and n2. This is the calling part. Now we have to define the function. So let's start. We'll write void, which is the data type, swap is the name of the function. Now inside the function we are writing the arguments int n1 n2, which we have passed from swap over here. These are those arguments. Now here we will swap both the numbers. For that we have to create a temporary variable t, and now we'll pass the value of n1 to this temporary variable t. So when n1 gets empty, we'll pass the value of n2 to n1. Now n2 gets free. Now we'll pass the value of t, temporary variable, to n2. So this is how it is getting swapped. Now we'll print a message /n. First of all we'll write /n, and after swapping, /n we have used because of we want to create some space so that it looks good. Now after swapping, now we'll display the variables, that is n1 and n2. We'll do it the same way, n1 and now the variable n1, and line, so that it looks good. Now same for n2. And it's done. Now all we have to do is to run this program. So first of all, let's save this program by Control and S. Now let's try to run this. Here we can see enter two numbers that you want to swap. So let's write 6 and 8. So n1 is our 6, n2 is our 8. After swapping, n1 becomes 8 and n2 becomes 6. So our output is correct and the program is working fine. So now let's do one example of inheritance. So let's create a new file and now name this file c++tut5.cpp and let's save this. So as we know that in inheritance there is a parent-child relationship between two classes. So let's start. First of all, let's include the header file #include iostream. Now we'll using namespace standard. Now in this question we'll start with parent class. So let's write class keyword. Now let's name the class as parent itself. Alright. Now the access modifier public and the function, let's say car, void car. Now in this function we'll print access to car, access to cars. Alright, this is one function. Let's create another one, void villa. These both are the properties of a parent class. So here I'll write access to the villa. So these are the two functions in the class, and make sure to put the semicolon in the end of the class. Now we will create the child class, and we know that the child class inherits the parent class, so it can access the functions and variables. Alright, so let's create this child class. Write class keyword and name it as child itself. Now we'll put colon and write the parent class. This shows that the child class is inherited from the base class, that is parent. Now we'll write public access modifier. Now we'll write a function savings. Now the savings function is inside the child class. So here we'll display access to the savings. And line. Now here we'll put the semicolon as the class is ending. Now we'll start with int main. Inside int main we'll create an object of child class and we'll try to access the functions of the parent class. So let's do this. Child, name of the class, now the object of child class, C1. Now we'll try to call this parent class functions, that is car and villa. Let's see if the child class has access to the functions of parent class, that is car and villa. Alright, C1 object name dot car, that is the function name. Now object name dot function name, that is villa. Here we are calling these two functions, and after that C1 dot savings, which is the function of child itself, child class. Now return 0. Now let's see that if child class can access these two functions of parent class. Let's save it by pressing Ctrl and S at the same time. Now let's run this. As you can see, access to cars, access to villa, and access to savings. Access to cars, access to villa, and access to savings. So this proves that child class inherits from the parent class, because here we have created the object of child class and we are calling the functions of parent class. And the functions of parent class, whatsoever is written or displayed inside those functions, is getting printed. So this proves that child class inherits from the parent class. So this is the example of inheritance, and we have done 5 to 6 examples on different topics. You can try some more examples on these topics.
And with that, we have come to the end of this C++ tutorial for beginners by SimpliCode. I hope you guys must have got a good idea about C++ programming by now. If you feel that we have missed out on some important topics that we were supposed to cover in this particular video, or if you have any doubt related to any of the topics we have covered in this particular video, then please feel free to drop them down in the comment section below, and our team of experts will definitely answer them for you. Thank you so much for being here, guys. We'll see you next time with some other videos. Until then, keep coding and stay tuned to SimpliCode for more amazing updates.